the last 10 people who are not online hopefully will join us very shortly. So yes, welcome to another Saturday of Language Arts Methods. I did go ahead and update Moodle. I know there's a lot of you who are kind of like me and you like to work ahead when you have some downtime. So what I did is I went through Moodle and just opened up the journals and discussion forums. So any of you who want to work ahead, knock yourselves out. So those are open for the non-Zoom week, and then for the regular week for journal due dates. What else was I going to tell you that I forgot to write down? We only have 2 sessions after today. So our next session on April 25th, that's going to be basically our last instructional session. And then our final session, which is that last session, the first weekend in May, we will do our final presentations, take a final, and wrap up our class. So I am kind of surprised at how quickly this semester has gone. I guess throw in coronavirus and random stuff and everything just goes by very quickly. Lesson plans, all of your grading should be caught up by today, and then we'll get started on lesson plan 4 so that you guys can get as much of that done as possible, get your 5th and final lesson plan done, and then we will talk next week about what our final class session is going to look like. So flow for today, we will cover chapter 9 content, take a break, chapter 10 content. I will roll out the quizzes. I will talk about discussion forum and journal, and then we will excuse you for the day. We're kind of at the tail end of the content, so while it's not like a lot of new content for you, there's still a lot of important things, but a lot of it can be done in a kind of a quick manner. So we're going to give you a little bit of time today to either work on your 5th and final lesson plan, or just take a brain break or whatever. So class will likely get out just a little bit early today as well. All right, any questions before Dakota dives into chapter 9 content? No? Okay. Well, then I will stop talking and I will let Dakota take over.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, and I do have to say, I hear from Dakota a lot, and she's been really enjoying supporting local businesses. I swear she eats out every single night. It's really entertaining.
I do. It's wonderful. I haven't had dirty dishes in like forever.
And she's like, I'm supporting local. I was like, again? Anyway, just jazzing you. Sorry. Okay, I'll shut up.
That's okay. I'm living vicariously through travel, so we're good.
I'm not going anywhere until the 10th now, and then who knows? I'm really not in the mood to be traveling. And there's legit 6 or 7 people on my flights that hold almost 200 people. So I feel very safe. Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll shut up.
All right, guys. So do you have any questions before we get started over the reading? No? Nobody at all? Did everybody read it? Some are still going like this. Oh, there you caught up. Okay. All right. So we're going to play a quick game of Would You Rather because it sounds like fun. So would you rather, okay, so you're going to hold a finger 1 or 2 for the answer. So 1, eat a 5-gallon bucket of slime made by a 2-year-old, because you never know what they're going to put in it. Or 2, lick toe jam from a homeless person. What is 3? 3 is not an option. No. 1 or 2. Oh, some people are saying 2. Very nice. I'm pleading the 5th and saying because I'm the one that made it up. So, all right, we'll get started on something educational now. Chapter 9 is really going into more of the things that need to be discussed at the grades 3 through 5. At the very beginning, it talks about word recognition, and that is, so when you get into 3rd grade, they talk about 3rd grade is the year of transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So the younger grades, you're teaching them how to read, they're learning how to read, and then once you hit that 3rd grade, that's the transition year, and older, from that stage and older, then they're reading to learn. So they're actually supposed to be able to look at content, be able to read it and understand what they're reading, not focusing on the word recognition part. So that is why the big push for fluency is so hard, because it's been proven that the students who focus more on the words that they're reading, they don't like trying to sound them out. They aren't focusing so much on the comprehension, which is a problem. And I see both sides of that argument, and I understand both sides. I personally don't think that each child should be, I mean, I have some that are wonderful readers and they put a lot of expression into it and they understand exactly what they're reading. But since they put so much expression into it and they pause appropriately, they don't get the correct words per minute. So at 6th grade, you have to have 155 for the winter testing window. And that's at 6th grade. They have to read 155 words correct per minute over these 3 stories. And it's the same 3 stories each testing window, or 3 windows a year. And the goal is for them to get higher, obviously. If they don't, and they don't pass the part that's called the A reading, which is like the comprehension side of it, then they're on this, it's called a what do we call it? At the elementary, it was called the red list. Here, it's just called the bi-weekly testing is what we call it. And they have to read a passage every week. On this passage, they have to get above 155 or they're flagged red. So that's the state saying they don't read fast enough. They're focusing more on on how to decipher the words than they are to actually just have the automaticity to just throw them out there. And I do see both sides of that, but if you have a very expressive reader, like I have some, they really get into it. I mean, they do different voices and everything else. So that was when it was started out and talking about word recognition. That's what it's meaning, when kids should be able to automatically look at a word and fire it off. They shouldn't have to think about it. They shouldn't have to sound it out. They should know the meaning, and they should know what it, to automatically be able to fire that off. When it talks about reading comprehension instruction, this is that 3rd grade-ish time. And you still work on it through the rest of, elementary and even into junior high and high school. There are different levels of different classes for each grade. So when it's talking about the instruction, it's the tools that they need to use. So I've talked about Tucker Signs before, and I know, because I'd asked Haley about it, that if her daughter was still doing it at Kyoto, and that's a reading comprehension strategy that they use when they're younger. That's like the R, like pirate R. They know that the AR makes the R sound. And as they get older, they're automatically able to just to fire that off. When there's like the string it out and put it back together. So they sound them out, put it back together. The L. Conan boxes of, you have like 3 boxes and you have to take out a letter and put a new letter in. That's working on the reading comprehension strategies at a younger age, so that when they get older, they can automatically see it, know it, they're able to just fire that one off. Word meaning. I have a lot of fun with this in my room, and my kids sometimes hate me for it. So we do a lot with, get your ideas down on paper first when you're writing. I don't care if it's upside down, sideways, just get them on the paper. Spelling doesn't matter, just get it down. And then when we start to put it together, we start talking about, what are some synonyms and some antonyms that you can put in here that can make this even more exciting? And that's when they look at me like I have 2 heads, because they know it's coming, but they don't want to do it. But then at the end, they're glad because the story is just so much more colorful, I guess you could say. One thing that I've really drilled into their heads is that synonym means same. So if you're looking for a synonym, you're looking for another word that means the same thing or nearly the same thing, but just to keep it short, synonym, same. And the antonym is the opposite. Does that make sense? It's a quick little tool that they can Oh, synonym, same. That kind of thing. And ways that you can work on word meaning are through the read alouds, having a discussion, having a debate. We had a debate last year in my room of if you could chew gum or not, which I don't care about that, but the principal at the elementary was like super against it. So they had to write down their debate, write down their ideas, and then they had to replace some words with some synonyms and antonyms so that they sounded more prepared in their argument, if that makes sense. And it worked. So that was cool. Then the other kids were jealous. It talks about sentence meaning, and that kind of goes with the word order part of it. If you put words out of order in a sentence, you have the syntax wrong. Okay, so that's like when Yoda talks. It's out of order. So they need to understand in a sentence that a verb has to go in a certain place, a noun has to go in a certain place, the subject, the predicate, all that kind of stuff. It has to go in a certain order. So when they're saying things to you, I had one student last year that his syntax was all over the place. So he would say something and then I would repeat it in the right order. And eventually we got him to start doing that. The verb was in the right place. It was a mess. He's doing better this year from what I've heard, but now that we've had how many weeks off of school, I'm sure next year will be interesting again. So the text organization, this one was interesting. So when you're telling a kid, if you tell a kid, find the topic sentence, find the main idea, and they look at you like, what? You have to pre-teach these things. They have to know what a topic sentence is. They have to know what a main idea is. They have to know how to organize those kind of things. So you have to, say that we're reading this book and I'm reading through it and I stop. And I'm like, they've mentioned Bobby 14 times already. Do you think that's a main character? Or they've mentioned the cat twice. Is the cat a main character? So you're talking through it with them so that they can understand. They're able to organize the text. They're able to organize and find, grasp the main ideas, grasp the concept. If it's a story about being kind to somebody, is the main idea to be kind, or is the main idea to show you how someone can be mean? You have to walk through that with them. The text aids, and that goes more into the pictures and the diagrams and the if someone hands you a graphic organizer and they're like, here you go, just do it. At our age, we're probably able to kind of figure out like maybe where stuff goes, but at their age, they have to be walked through everything. And I have a few graphic organizers that I'm going to share with you. And they are on the page, on our Moodle page, but let me see if I can share my screen here. Joanne, I need you to share your screen or let me share my screen.
No, that's not fun. Okay, hold on. Okay, try now.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I think this is it. Share screen. Okay, is it not telling me? Ah, there we go. So all graphic organizers help with, there's my Disney Plus. I'm gonna watch Frozen 2 later, don't you worry. So any type of graphic organizers help with comprehension. You talk through with them, they write it down, and remember that when you have them write something down, what's the word I'm looking for here? When you have them write it down, it sticks better in the brain. There's a more technical term, but it's totally left me right now. So with cause and effect, why did this happen? What caused it to happen? There can be more than one cause and effects in a story. My favorite, oh my gosh. Anyway, it's a story and it's called Anansi and the Turtle. I don't know if you guys have heard this or not. It's, Okay. It's a really, oh, I'll think of it in a minute. It's a type of genre. Anyway, so Anansi is this spider, and he has this big meal, and he's sitting here eating it, and a turtle, or no, and he has a bunch of water and a bunch of drinks and everything, and this turtle comes up, and he's really hungry, and he's really thirsty, and Anansi plays this big joke on him and says, go and find some more food and come back and eat with me. Well, by the time he comes back, Anansi's ate and drank everything. So then the turtle's all upset. Well, then and Anansi talks about, well, come back, or we'll have to share a meal some other time. The turtle's like, okay. So the turtle talks about how he has all this delicious seafood and crab and stuff, but it's under the water. And the only way that Anansi, the spider, can get down there is if he ties a rock to his back and rides the turtle on the turtle's back down below the water. And he goes down there and he's like, I don't have anywhere to sit. And the turtle says, well, untie your rock and have a seat on it. Then you have a chair to sit on. So Anansi unties the rock, and of course he floats back to the top because he can't stay down there. And then the turtle comes up and says, how do you like it? So that's a really good cause and effect of so the turtle took the rock off and he floated to the top. Why did that happen? Like, what happened? Why did that happen? There's a really good cause and effect there. Why didn't the turtle end up sharing his food with Anansi? Because Anansi was a jerk. Why did Anansi not share his food with the turtle? Because he was being selfish. Oh, it starts with a P, and it's driving me nuts that I can't think of the genre. I know, I'll think of it, or I'll look it up later. That's probably what's going to happen. And we talked about the comprehension by third grade. That's the transition from reading to learn, learning to read to reading to learn. I really like the tables on 266 and 267 because it gives the same examples for third, fourth, and fifth of word recognition, comprehension, and strategic knowledge, but it also shows the progression of it. So look at, or I'm just going to tell you about it. So comprehension in third grade, uses comprehension strategies to understand text. Comprehension in fourth grade uses a range of comprehensional strategies. They're learning the strategies in third. They're using different ones that work best for them in fourth. In fifth, it says use word knowledge to gain meaning of context words. So I've talked about my word wall before, that there were words up there that were new and interesting. And on the front, you wrote the word down. And on the back, you wrote the meaning and you used it in a sentence that made sense to you. So once you get up to fifth grade, you're finding words that you don't always understand in your books, and then you're looking around it. So one of the comprehension strategies is a context clue. Look for context clues. If you told a third grader to do that, they wouldn't understand what you meant. So that's an example of how you're still doing the same strategies. They're just getting more developed. And in third grade and fourth grade, you're taught a bunch of different strategies. And then later on in fourth through fifth and sixth, then you find the strategies that work for you, that work best. And that's the point of, you teach them all and then they kind of narrow down which ones they like and don't like. The reading to learn strategies, we've kind of talked about that. The model and show students how to do what they're supposed to do for understanding text. That would be, when you read through it with them, you think out loud. The engages them in guided practice with text. So that would be an example. Have I told you guys about how at first I thought it was really stupid to have kids take an open book test? Have I talked to you guys about that? Okay, so the last couple of years, when I first started teaching, I'm like, you're letting them use the book for a test. Are you kidding me? And now it's, I let them use the book, but they have to write down the page number that they found it on, and then they can answer it. So they're able to go, first off, it makes them more accountable. They can't just circle an answer because they get a point for having the right page number down. If they do have the right page number, but they still got it wrong, they can go back to that page number when we're correcting and fix it. It makes them much more accountable. They take the actual time. So this year, I just started it this year, and the first social studies test that I gave, it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages long, multiple choice and some essay. They were done in 15 minutes. I'm like, no, this is not working. I did it. I'm like, no, you didn't. You're full of it. So I went over the test. They all bombed it, except for like my 5 overachievers, which they didn't have to redo it. But the other ones, I said, you're going to retake this. It is the same one. And because they're looking at it like, you gave us a different test. And I'm like, well, that shows how well you read it the first time. It's the exact same one. And they got it. They had to find the page numbers. They had to answer it according to that. And it was amazing. Everybody got an 85 or above. So that's kind of the, guiding them through a text. That was what stuck out to me on that one. So that must be another class I talked about that. Sorry. Provide collaborative and independent practice opportunities. We do a lot of group talk. Like I ask the whole class questions. They don't have to raise their hand. It's just like we're all talking about it. We're all working together. And it's amazing, before it's like, you need to raise your hand. They do so much better with this form of it that, they feel like they have a say. They've learned the social cues of if someone's getting ready to talk, they might kind of straighten up a little bit. They might kind of clear their throat. It's been interesting to watch the whole thing happen. So that's why that jumped out to me. And then reinforce their application to group projects, individual assignment. Any group project that I assign, the students are also assigning their peers or grading their peers. So did this person work cooperatively? What does that look like? Did they argue? Did they voice their opinion, but in a nice way? Or did they call someone stupid? Did they destroy someone else's work, or did they build someone up? It really focuses on working together. So that was interesting. So you have to really talk them through all of these things at the very beginning of the year for them to understand. Once you've been able to talk them through that and they have the procedures down, it goes really well. So I know I'm going to have to do a little bit of reteaching when we go back, because we're going to go back. That's what I'm focusing on, that. Focus on the positives. We're going to go back. And I'm sure I'll have to go over that a little bit, but it will be fine. So later on, it talks about developing vocabulary. And this, I love the word wall for this. And there's a thing called Word of the Week, and it's at work. And if I totally could go get it and show you, I would. But so there's a picture at the top. There's like 4 slots. There's a picture at the top. Well, there's the word at the very top. Then there's a big picture showing what's happening. Then there's the definition from the dictionary. And then there's, in their own words, how they do it. And start off the week with just, well, this is how it's supposed to work, but I forget to do it. So it ends up, we do it all at the same time. And a kid has to be the one to replace it, because if not, it doesn't get done. And so I have one student who she'll go up every day and she'll, it's a word on this side and a word on the back side. So it's like week 1, week 2. So she'll go up and she'll flip it. And she knows where all the things are at, so she can go up and change them when we need to. So for 1 full week, we have a word up there. We have a picture showing it. We have the definition from the dictionary, and then we have it in their own words. So say the word is conflict. So conflict is up at the top. That's our word of the week. And throughout the week, they're looking for it in their reading. They're using it in discussions. They're using it in everyday conversation. And then there's the picture, and it might show 2 dogs growling at each other, showing that there's a conflict. Then it gives the actual definition at the bottom, and they have to put the word conflict in their own words. So it's supposed to go like you start at the top with the word, then they draw their own picture, then they look up the dictionary, and then you put the answer in there. And then they come up with their own thing, but I always forget, and we end up doing it on Friday. Or we set it all up on Monday, and then we discuss it more on Friday. So, I'll be honest. That's just like changing the date on the chalkboard. The kids do that. And they love to do it. Like it's their job. And they're like, hi, I remembered. And I'm like, cool, I didn't. Thanks for that. So when you're doing the word of the week, and that kind of helps them expand their vocabulary. Some of these kids just don't have the background knowledge that everyone else does. So when even the word conflict that you would think would be a super easy thing, it's not. Some kids just say fighting over and over and over again. Fighting. What are they doing? What are those dogs doing? They're fighting. They're having a conflict. Like broad in the horizon a little bit. Let me switch to another. Oh, I like this one. So on this graphic organizer, it starts with an event. Okay, what happened? What are 3 things that give details of what that happened in that event? And then from that event, I went to the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one, and the fifth and sixth. So she would show this to the kids first. I realize you totally can't see my hand and I'm pointing to things on the screen. You would show this paper to the kids first. Then you would give them this one. So they would know, and you have give it to them when you're first starting this, both of them at the same time. Maybe have a bigger version of this. I'm doing it again. Maybe have a bigger version of this up on the screen or up on the wall somewhere, that they know that the first line is the events. The second, third, and fourth line talk about the details. So that once they have their blank copy, they can set it up the way that you want it set up, in the way that, so that everything matches and everybody's matches. Venn diagrams are a lot of fun. It shows a really good compare and contrast on the same screen for them. You know, for the items from category 1, say that's a tornado. Excuse me. Items from category 2 is a hurricane. How are they different? And in the middle, how are they alike? You really have to make sure that they know to stay in the lines, because I've had kids that write all over the paper, clear through all 3 or all 2 circles and in the center one, and then they're drawing arrows everywhere. Like this one goes here. No, you need to keep it in the bubble. Keep it here or here, and the shared is in the center. So you have to go over with that with them. Otherwise it will look like a completely messed up game of life. You know how the board on Game of Life is like, yeah, that's what it'll end up looking like. Story map. This is a pretty simple one. This is basic. You know, what happens in the beginning, what happens in the middle, what happens in the end. I have a really good example of this, but it's in my car. So I'll be right back. Oh, wait. Yes, it's in my car. Okay, look at my cute teacher bag. I did not make this. It is homemade, but I didn't make it. So, oh, please be it. Hallelujah, it is. Okay. At the beginning of every unit, we focus on, let me find it. Here. Okay, so you can't see it super well. Okay, I'll show you this one first. Okay. Hold on. I don't want to knock over my coffee. That would be a holy disaster. Can you see that right there?
It's really hard to see. Maybe if you stop sharing, we can see a bigger screen.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Good idea. Okay. Now try it. So it's a graphic organizer that the kids use through the entire unit. And at the beginning of every unit, it asks an essential question. So the essential question for this one was, how do you find courage in the face of fear? Which is pretty fitting for right now. And I have hair in my mouth, gross, it's attached to my head. Okay. So how do you find courage in the face of fear? And at the beginning of every unit, there are words, and we have a word wall or a word thing. I don't know, you can see that one. So there are words brought up multiple times throughout the unit. And they have this, it's called a word network. Okay, so in the center, you put the word that you're looking up. Up here, you put synonyms for that word, antonyms, word root, related words. So the related words are like words that, like the word is evident. So evidently or evidence, it's just different forms of the vocab word in the center. And then you have your example in your own words, and then you have the definition. So there are 5 words or 6 words that come up throughout the unit over and over and over again. And they have this packet, so they have to, you can do it on the computer, but no, write it down, because otherwise they're going to be trying to get on YouTube. And yeah, and they have to use an actual dictionary. They love me for that one. So they have this. They use this throughout the entire unit. And the other one that I showed you, which I don't have a printout of that with me right now, but it's called the response log. So there are 6 or 8 stories in each unit, and they have to answer on this thing, like what happens in the story, and they have to answer the essential question, which is, how do you find courage in the face of fear? Each story, the first one is from The Breadwinner. I don't know if you've heard of that. There's another one called Life Doesn't Frighten Me. It's about a dragon. Let's see here. Oh, The Breadwinner is about, it's in Iraq, and it's about a little girl who usually that little girls can't go to the market on their own. It has to be the son or the dad. And that if the daughter does go, it has to be accompanied by like the older brother or the dad. And the dad was killed in the war, and the younger brother, I think, is just, it doesn't say where he was killed too. So this little girl has long, beautiful hair, and she has to cut it off to make herself look like a boy. And so she has to be the one to go to the market and get the food and get the clothing for her family. And it talks about how did she overcome, she's worried about, if I walk in, what if they find out I'm a girl? And so when they are answering on that response log, how did that, I forget her name. Parvana is her name. How did Parvana overcome fear? And they have to answer that on that response log. So then once at the very end, then they have to write like an essay, and I forget what the essay was over on this one. I don't know. At the end of them, so there's a different writing activity at the end of each of the reading units. One of them was a persuasive, you had to talk, so one of them other recent ones were, it was, should exotic animals be pets? Like that was the focus of the unit. Like that was the essential question. Should exotic animals be pets? And each story, which now of the whole Tiger King thing, that would be, thank God I don't have to listen to that. I'm sorry if you guys like that. I was folding laundry. I made it through about 20 minutes and then I just couldn't do it. Like
that show is nuts. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I've only made it through 20 minutes, and that was enough for me. So,
oh my gosh.
The whole Carol Baskins is all I got out of it, because of what he says over and over again. And I was like, I would rather listen to the sound of like nails on a chalkboard, because that's what it sounded like to me. Like, this is ridiculous. So I'm sure when we go back, because we are going to go back, that the kids will all be ramped up about that, and we'll be talking about it. And yeah, so it's called Through the Eyes of an Animal. So what can you learn by seeing the world through the eyes of an animal? And there, at the end, what they had to do is they had to write a persuasive essay over, should wild animals be pets? Yes or no, and why? And there were some really interesting ones. One talked about how animals are really smart. One of my students, that like a cow every morning at 5 o'clock knows that it needs to walk into the stanchions to be milked, because it's associated with, that's kind of like the Pavlov's dog thing. Like you ring a bell, it starts to salivate, you give it a treat, that kind of thing. Like it knows that it walks into the stanchions to be milked. Otherwise, then that's a relief of pain. I'm like, I never thought of it that way. You are onto something. And this is one of my kids who you think is always sleeping. So if a kid is sitting here like this, or like this, they're not always sleeping apparently. But I mean, I didn't give him any crap about it because he's adorable and super witty and I really miss him. But he sent me an email the other day and he's like, I miss adult interaction. I said, how's Fortnite? He goes, it's Fortnite. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm kind of tired of it. So yeah, he's very witty. He's very fun. But So there's an example of walking through things and having graphic organizers for them. I want to go through the reading workshops. So I don't do this anymore at my level, but at the younger levels, you know, that's, so with benchmark literacy, that was their big thing, is they had reading workshop and they had writer's workshop. And starts out with the mini lesson, you know, to grab their attention. Then you go on to the reading part and you give the full like 20, 25-minute lesson. Then you have a little bit of time for them to respond. And that is the same in the reading and the writing workshop, that it's a group conversation. They would always like come, I would sit in this super comfy chair. They would come sit on the ground in front of me. You know, I had the big books to read them. And then they would respond to questions I would ask. And it would be like, what do you infer about how cis cow reacted to Brer Rabbit? That's another one of my favorite ones too. Oh, I miss those ones. I should have made a copy of all those books. What is that? It starts with a P. I need to write that down. Oh my God, it's gonna drive me nuts. Okay, I'm gonna look that up in a little bit. Cis cow and Brer Rabbit's another one. Anansi the Sky King's another one. Ha! Gonna drive me nuts. Anansi and the Sky King. Anyway, so, and then you share, like the whole class shares out what they think the answers are. This is usually when you go farther into the genre. That's when I would do that part of it. Then it talks about monitoring reading progress, and that's the, you know, like on FAST when you have to give the test 3 times a year. That would be the monitoring for the entire grade, and then the ones who didn't pass that have it weekly or bi-weekly. The state actually only requires it once a month, but I'd rather do it more than not enough, and then have more data than I need, so that when the parents are asking questions, it's like, look, here it is. You know, I have 12 data points over the last 3 months instead of 3 or 4. You know, I have plenty. Here. Okay. One quick thing that I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do is I'm going to put you into breakout groups, and you're going to talk about a time when you were really confused about a graphic organizer. We've all had it. There are still graphic organizers that I'm looking at and I'm like, my brain doesn't function this way. Like, what is this trying to tell me? And if you want to look them up and show an example, that's fine too. It's only 5 minutes. You're just going to discuss it. This is not an assignment. Don't freak out. But I'm going to throw you in a break. Actually, I'm not. Joanne is, because I don't have those rights right now.
You have 0 rights. How many breakout groups do you need? Don't think too
8.
hard about it. Okay.
Shut up.
All right, 8 going.
8. All right. Everybody back? No, not yet. Getting closer.
They'll close automatically in 60 seconds.
Okay. Sounds good. You have all those fancy rights this time, so I can't see anything. I feel so out of control.
You'll be okay.
I'll just sit here and drink out of my Care Bear cup.
What's in that cup?
You digging it?
Our teacher or our principal said we're gonna have our next meeting at happy hour, and she said, I asked everybody, and it is legal to drink. Just don't have it in a can.
I've wondered that myself a few nights if I was like, it's appropriate as long as it's not, you know, actually visible.
Mm-hmm. So I think it was my first year teaching, and it was our end of the year meeting, and we had it at the clubhouse. I would not suggest that for a first year teacher for the end of the year. I mean, everybody, I was not, because I was just like overwhelmed. You know, everybody's like slinging drinks, and the superintendent's put it on my tab, and I'm like, and I'm like just 21 at this point, and I'm like, what's happening? Like, my principal's falling down drunk. The science teacher's mixing so many concoctions. He's like, look at my chemistry experiment. And I'm like, holy smokes, I gotta get out of here.
So funny story, kind of the same thing, but I work at the school that I went to.
Oh.
And so like half of the teachers are the ones who taught me. It was weird.
The principal
That would be odd.
has like a winter party every year at his house, and he supplies the alcohol, and they have like karaoke and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to that.
Oh my. We have to, it seems that ours is every like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I have the same issue. Like my first year as a para, they're like, oh yeah, the staff Christmas party, like it's in one of my, it's our secretary to the super, she hosts it every year because she's got a big barn. Well, that's my husband's old school, and he like refuses to go because he doesn't want to party with all of his old teachers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah, we seem to have a Christmas party like every other year because it gets too wild the year before, so we got to take a year off. Yeah. Okay. So I think everybody's back now, hearing about our interesting parties. Just a couple people like chat out of your least favorite graphic organizer. Like mine would be this if I didn't know how to do it. Like what goes where, how do you use it? Okay.
That was our thing. Why can't you just label them? Right? Like if it has labels, it's great.
That was ours too, Amanda.
Oh my goodness. We found some crazy ones. What was that one called? Sequence of events?
Yeah.
When they're blank? That's just confusing to look at. Just put a label on it.
You just put a label on it. I feel like that's a song.
Brief.
Put a label on it? I mean, is it? I mean, I know the put a ring on it thing, but put a label? I don't know. Okay. Any questions about what I went over for chapter 9? I know I was kind of all over the place. Welcome to my brain. No? Good to go? Okay. We are going to go on a break, but I am not the person to say how long of time because I had Joanne bring you back at 9:43 and she thought I was crazy. She's like, are you serious? Why not 9:45? And I'm like, I do what I want. Keep them on their toes. So I'll let her tell you what time to come back since I'm not good at that.
I just feel like we're all delusional at this point. I'm legit going crazy with all of the bizarreness that's going on in our world. So it's just a weird day. All right, so it's 9:47. Let's come back at 10:05, and then I'm going to dive into an activity for chapter 10, and I'll roll out the rest of what we're doing, and Dakota can keep drinking her Care Bear coffee. Sound good?
You know what? Love is great for growing things.
So is dirt. Okay, be back at 10:05. Have a good break. You don't have to keep your camera in. Shh. Less caffeine. I'm just kidding.
Dakota and Joanne, I have a quick question for you guys. When I was doing my lesson for my, you know what I mean.
Yep. lesson plan.
I have a really good idea. Yeah, my goodness. I had a really good idea for the 5th one, and I really want to do it, but it kind of covers the same
Standard.
good grief, yes. Holy buckets, I'm losing it. Is that okay? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a totally
sometimes-
different lesson.
Yeah, sometimes your standards end up kind of seeping into a lot of different lessons, so that's okay.
Perfect. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, turning off my camera
And your microphone.
and my microphone. Now, I want you guys to hear my dogs. Okay, it is 10:05, so we're going to go ahead and dive into chapter 10 and get going. So I'll give you guys just a second to come on back on. If you wouldn't mind going to Moodle, you'll need to refresh Moodle because I just opened something up. And then that we're going to work through that in just a second. So chapter 10, writing is one of my favorite topics. I love writing. I do a lot of freelance writing myself for a couple of magazines and for a couple of websites. So it's just something I like to do. I like to teach it, and I'll be honest with you, I hate to grade it. The reason I hate to grade writing is because so many students are poor writers. What are some reasons why people are poor writers? And Dakota, I totally forgot I was going to let you have a minute to share something, but I'll come back to you. So anyway, what are some reasons why we have poor writers? Any ideas, any thoughts, comments? You can
Because
either
everything is through text and everybody uses stupid emojis and words that aren't real words, maybe.
Okay, any others?
Hey, I like my
Teachers don't always take the time to encourage the students to write. You know, they might have them write in a journal, but they don't actually read it. So, I mean, they're not helping them to make themselves better with it.
Okay.
It's something that builds on each other. So if you don't have the foundational skills, it's hard to grow.
Okay. One last comment. Anyone else? Why?
It takes time.
Two last comments. Okay. Who was talking before Jared?
Oh, I think that was me. I just said it takes time.
Okay. And then Jared, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just saying if a kid has like a learning disability or like a writing, IEP or anything like that, it can be a little bit harder. That's another reason. They just don't like it because of that reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So I guess what my big thing as a teacher is it's hard to grade writing. Okay, so as you start progressing through the grades, you've got kindergartners, they're super cute and they're writing their letters. And then all of a sudden, they're forming their letters wrong. And what do? Oh, we don't correct that. We just keep plugging through our curriculum. So it starts all the way in kindergarten. We do not do a very good job as educators stopping mistakes when we see them and correcting them. So what Jared said and what everybody else basically just said, that foundational knowledge, if it's not really solid when you start, as you build through the writing process, you're going to lose your kids. And then you're going to end up teaching fourth grade with kids who can't write. And so as a fourth grade teacher, what do? Like you've just inherited this batch of children who can't write, and it's so frustrating. So that's just kind of my experience. So I challenge all of you, especially those of you who are hitting the early grades, the first grade, the second grade, correct mistakes as you see them and talk about them. They're not bad. Mistakes are natural. Mistakes happen. That's how we learn. So if you see a child who is writing incorrectly or spelling incorrectly, don't overlook it. You need to stop and explicitly teach. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Basically, chapter 10 really hits pretty deeply to really challenge you as teachers that teaching writing requires a lot of effort. It's not just, here's your writing prompt, everybody have a fluffy day. No, what are you going to do with the writing that you're asking them to write? If the kids don't have a purpose for writing, you're going to get crap turned in. And if you don't want crap, then make sure your students know what the purpose is. What's the purpose for the assignment? Why are you asking me to write this? There has to be a purpose so kids want to write for you. It could either be you're going to put it on a bulletin board, you're going to share it, you're going to use it for a writer's workshop. Don't just assign an assignment and then never refer back to it. It's like your lesson plan. What are you going to do to close up that activity? You need to come back to it and validate the kids. Hey, you wrote a paragraph about the weather process because that's what we've been studying in science. Let's share 5 of those and we're going to make a weather bulletin board out of it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that hard. When kids feel validated, like their writing has a purpose, they get excited about that. It talks about also the structural features of a classroom that has a strong writing curriculum and a strong writing instructional program. And it talks about how before beginning the teaching of writing, teachers need to make preparations. You can't just come to work and say, I feel like writing about teddy bears today. Kids aren't stupid. They know that if you don't have a connection to what you're teaching, it's like that teacher I told you I taught with when I was teaching multi-age. She would just pull ideas out of the ceiling and have the kids do these activities and then assign work and assign projects and never assess them. And the kids, they saw through it and they were very frustrated because there was no purpose to it. They felt like they were being asked to just do busy work, and kids don't like busy work. Adults don't like busy work. You need to make sure that when you are building your writing instruction that you have enough time. Most of us have reached a point in education where our district has basically said, because of the Iowa Core, you have to have a 90-minute instructional block for language arts. So that gives you a little bit of freedom. What do you want to break that into? We know that language arts includes reading and writing and listening skills and oral communication. So how are you going to divvy that up? If you hate writing, that's not fair. You can't just say, we're going to do 5 minutes of writing every day. No. It's like the person who doesn't like teaching math, so they just don't. You can't do that. So effectively, you need to give yourself 40 to 45 minutes of writing instruction per day, and then 40 to 45 minutes of your reading instruction. And that's what best practice and research shows us. Your classroom, when you're consciously designing a writing-based classroom, it needs to have an environment where kids can do a writer's workshop and they can talk through their writing process. It's really important for them to share their work. Like I said, helps them to find purpose in their writing. Your classroom should have an area so that writers can gather. So whether you either assign a pod of desks that is the writing workshop pod, or you have a kidney-shaped table, or even some carpet space for the little kids where you're sharing your writing. You need to have appropriate materials, and that's just kind of a given. We are so focused on technology and iPads, and my kids are in high school now, and Knoxville decided for whatever reason to get rid of the MacBooks and gave everybody got iPads. Well, is an iPad helpful for a writer? How many of you have had to try to type on an iPad? That is ridiculous. So they require the kids to either hunt and peck on their stupid little virtual keyboard, or you have to buy with your own money a keyboard. So I understand money is tight, but at the same time, if we want to build writers, give them the tools that they need. So if you expect them to write and have their assignments uploaded into a printed, written, nicely looking document, give them the tools. Don't give them an iPad. Sorry, dogs. And then you need to help the kids understand how to make plans to move their writing through the process, because you don't just say, here's your assignment, and walk away from the kids and say, good luck. Because it's like when you assign silent reading. Are they really writing? No. They're probably doodling in their notebook. Do you ever look at the journals that you assign them? Do you look at the, the daily 5 that you assign? Or is that just busy work so that you don't have to go attend to the students? If that's how you're addressing writing, that is really not helpful to build students into writers. So anyway, again, soapbox activities, sorry. So what you guys are going to do for me is I'm going to just kind of give you a quick sample of experimenting with your ideas of what the writing process looks like. So your job right now, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do this, and then we'll come back as a large group. So do not open the document that I refreshed on Moodle. Just ignore that for right now. Share my screen. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Candace, I can see you. Can you see the writing prompt? Yes, perfect. Okay. Okay, it says, your teacher is making a bulletin board about people who are special. A special person might be a friend, a relative, or someone else. So we're going to make a bulletin board, a pretend bulletin board. So what I want you to do right now is take 10 minutes, and I want you to write me a paper telling who your special person is and why they're special to you. So for 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes to do whatever you want. Okay? I'm not giving you any information about it. That's the point of this activity. So you can turn your camera off for 10 minutes. We will come back at 10:25, no longer than that. So you have 10 minutes to do this quick assignment. I'll leave this up, and you guys get to go and write about a special person. Okay? You can type it out or write it on a piece of paper. All right, it's 10:25. So hopefully you are done writing your paper. So put your pencils down, put your computer away, whatever you're doing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And now what you need to do is I need you to go to Moodle, and it says chapter 10 activity, and I want you to open it up, and it looks like this. And I want you to just quickly fill it out. You can just jot your paper notes. You don't have to print it or anything like that. You should be able to type right on it if you want to, but take about 3 or 4 minutes to fill that paper out, and then we'll discuss it in just a second.
Hey, Joanne.
Yep.
When I click on it,
yeah,
this has happened to me before, and usually I can fix it. It just tells me error output, so disabling automatic redirect, and then it comes up with the William Penn address when I click on the document.
Well, that's very strange. Okay. Let me see. I'll go to the screen. I'll go to the page and share it, and that way you can just quickly jot your answers down. It's nothing super
Perfect.
formal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. There you go. Do you see it now? Okay, perfect. Okay, it's 10:30. So we are going to go ahead and start running through this. So I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully you got a good chance to see that. And then I'll share it again when we need to come back to it. So before we discuss this, I want to show you one more thing. If it will share. All right, there we go. Okay, so back to the slideshow. Get rid of that. All right, is the slideshow back up? You can see it. Okay, perfect. So the only thing I really wanted to hit real quick, research findings shows that skilled writers, when you have skilled writers, they spend a lot of time on pre-writing. They focus on content first. They save the editing of mechanics until later. And they use a recursive process going back and forth between pre-writing, drafting, and revising. Okay, so what I think is important to know about that, I'm going to refer back to the unit plan you guys are working on. How many times have you changed your unit plan ideas? A lot? 4 or 5 times? I don't know, once or twice. So that's part of the writing process. You as a human being and an advanced thinker naturally do that. Younger kids don't naturally do that. So it has to be taught. We have to teach them how to pre-write and that it's okay to not have a final draft your first time. You shouldn't have a final draft your first time. But you as adults have already figured that out. You've gone through college, you've gone through high school, so you naturally are constantly revising activities or assignments, or even when you're doing a job, if you're in a different profession right now, you revise how you do things all the time. So the writing process is no different. So it's a recursive process, meaning that you go back and forth between all of these processes, knowing that when you're done, you'll have your best draft, hopefully. And then it says that less skilled writers tend to do the opposite. So less skilled writers do not spend a lot of time on pre-writing. I'm going to use my son as an example. He is a good writer. He's a strong writer, but he's very, very lazy. And I'm sure you guys have a lot of students or know people who just don't enjoy writing. And so that makes him a less skilled writer because he doesn't spend a lot of time on pre-writing. He wants to write it once and he wants to turn it in because what did I say? He doesn't have a purpose for writing, right? The purpose is to turn it in and be done with it. That's his only purpose. So then you look at what my writing process is. I write for 2 different magazines. I write for Sprint and Midget, Sprint Car and Midget magazine, and then I write for Dirt Monthly magazine. So what is the purpose of my writing? Who's my audience?
The reader.
The reader, yes. Who also happen to be race colleagues of mine, people I know, people I don't know. So do I care what my writing looks like? Yeah, I don't want to look like an idiot when it goes to be published. I mean, it's a published publication. So I don't want to look like an idiot. So that's kind of my purpose is I want to look like I know what I'm talking about. I want the readers to be entertained by what I'm writing about. Going back to my son's writing, he's in a college writing class right now, and it's been torture. He has, in fact, he just got this assignment. Basic organization of a dialectic essay. And then it goes on and gives him 50,000 steps.
Are you showing it on our screen? Because I can only see.
I was just showing you the paper that he was given. Are you?
Oh, I
mean,
can only see whatever you were sharing, like the PowerPoint you were sharing before.
That's all I'm doing right now. I just happened to show a paper of my son. I'll stop sharing my screen, but okay. It's this lovely handout that he has, and it's 4 pages long, explaining what he has to do to write this dialectic essay with research. Everybody excited about that? No. So what is the purpose of writing that for my son? To turn it in. That's the purpose. So I guess that's my point. He does not find an intrinsic reason to write this paper. It's not exciting to him. The topic was chosen for him. The topic of this paper has to be, the purpose is, let's see, you are going to write a paper discussing, is a 4-year college education worth it? So that's what he has to discuss in a 5-page paper. So what are the things that my son sees right away? 5 pages, research, holy cow. So his purpose, he's already gone. He's lost, which, you know, he's a college student. And so it's different. Our textbook talks about having an exciting purpose and allowing students to choose what they write about. All right, so let's go back to what I just assigned you. What was your assignment?
To write about a special person.
A special person.
Write about a special person. Okay, so go back to the activity sheet that I just asked you to fill out. So when you're writing about your special person, did I give you time to pre-write?
Not really.
Nope. Did I give you any information about the assignment?
No.
A little bit, not
Did I give you
much.
any guidelines?
Nope, I didn't know how much to write. So
Okay. Did I give you any background information?
Just that it was going to be on a bulletin board.
Oh, I told you it was going to be on a bulletin board, so I did give you a purpose, right? I said we're going to put it on a bulletin board. Were you excited to write about this?
Not really.
Not really. No. Okay. So what I just showed you, I gave you a very bad example of what so many teachers do when they teach writing. However, there was a point to doing that to you. What I wanted you to do, because I didn't give you any guidance whatsoever, so I'm giving you an example of what non-explicit instruction looks like. So do not do what I just did for you. However, I wanted you to be able to go through this handout and answer these questions based on the writing process. So just for the sake of time, and because I said we were going to get out a little bit early, I'm not going to put us in breakout groups like I had originally talked about doing, but let's just discuss the handout real fast. And I would really like to hear from several people who don't normally talk. But as you were going through this really poorly delivered lesson, how did you discover the topic of your writing as a special person? How did you discover that? Did you consider writing about someone else first? Were you thinking about how your audience might respond if you selected the person you were thinking of writing for yourself? What was your decision-making process? So just talk about those questions really quick.
I
considered it.
chose.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I chose to write about someone that I knew really well because I knew I would have a larger amount of information about them versus someone that I didn't.
Okay.
So mine made it really easy to choose.
Mine was kind of the same. I chose like the first three people that came to mind, and then whoever the most things I could think about because I knew we had a limited amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I chose the easiest person to write about.
I just used my dad a lot.
Did you write about your mom, Lauren?
I did actually.
Sorry, I know, Lauren. I would have wrote about your mom too. So then when you guys were writing the little story, did anybody pre-write?
I did. I just like quickly wrote like who I was going to write about and then like 3 reasons why they were special to me.
Okay.
That's what I did.
I did that too.
All right.
I did not do that.
I did not
do that
either.
All right. So according to our text, the pre-writing process is extremely important. So what did I do wrong when I delivered this lesson to you?
If we could have had like 2 minutes to just say like why they're special and just do like a small pre-writing activity before we actually started the time to write, that would have been helpful.
Absolutely. So if I had done a good job delivering this lesson, I would have had 45 minutes at least, and we probably wouldn't have even started writing. I wouldn't have asked you to write anything today. I might have had you brainstorm. I might have given you a graphic organizer that said, you know, maybe I'm teaching kindergarten. No, they don't write very well in kindergarten. Maybe I'm teaching 2nd grade and I have just a picture, like a circle with somebody's I have you put somebody's name in it, and then we start talking about what are the attributes of this person. What are they like? What do you like about them? Why are they special? Are they a hard worker? Are they kind? Do they give you money to be your friend? I don't know. So if I had done a good job, we would have spent a lot of time on the pre-writing strategy. We would have talked about it for probably one whole class period. Did I give you time to revise? Did I give you time to edit?
No.
No? So I gave you 10 minutes to do an assignment. Does anyone want to share theirs? I would love to hear from like 3 or 4 people to share their writing project that we're going to put on a bulletin board.
I can share mine. I wrote about my sister-in-law. So as the only girl in the family, I don't have any sisters, so she's actually very, very special to me and important. Do you want me to read the whole thing for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So my sister-in-law is very special to me. She is a mother of 4 wonderful children. She is on the front lines right now as an RN in our local hospital. She is the person I am able to go to for any questions that I have. I have had a lot of questions about sick kids, pregnancy, nursing, you name it. She has been able to answer it. Shauna has had some hardships in her life. Most recently, when we were both pregnant with our daughters, she lost her baby. It was so hard to watch my brother and sister-in-law go through this. Shauna bore that loss with a child and turned it into something more. She is an advocate for infant loss. Shortly after they lost their baby, they became pregnant again. It amazed me the strength that she showed through her last pregnancy. Our entire family was worried as Shauna has not had one easy pregnancy. I think her daughter was looking down on her from heaven and helped the littlest member of their family come into this world safely. I am the only girl in a family of 3 boys. When Shauna came into my life 15 years ago, it was the best decision my brother could have made. I feel like Shauna is the sister I never got to have. She is an amazing mother, friend, wife, and nurse. So it was more like a journal writing for me.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about the revision and editing process, if you were to take this and polish it then and make this something that you would turn in or display, like I said, if you were in a classroom as a 4th grader and put it on a bulletin board, what would your revision process look like? How would you edit what you wrote?
I would definitely clean it up because it is it's definitely thrown together right now. And it was just the thoughts as they came to my mind, they went down on the paper. So I would probably revise it by making it sound a little bit more professional instead of more of like a personal journal entry, I suppose.
So if you, excuse me, on page 306 in our text, it talks about the structure of the teaching writing workshop. Writing workshop is, I'm glad your essay was actually, it seemed to have a really nice start to it. And like you said, it's not polished. It's kind of thrown together. You have great thoughts. So you did exactly what the highlighted thing from the PowerPoint showed. You did a great job of just getting your content down. And then now a good skilled writer would go back and put that into a more organized structure. So if you look at how the page 306 to 309, 10, if you focus on those pages for how to develop a writer-centered workshop, our textbook has all kinds of good ideas for how you can structure that. I'm going to show you one more slide because it shows you how to really easily set your classroom up for that. All right. I feel like I need 3 computers because I can't ever see everything at one time, so I'm jumbled. All right, so Jared, you pop up first again. Can you see this? The components of the writing workshop. Okay, so had I taken all of your essays, your very first draft, let's say I actually did a much better job with the pre-writing and the conferencing and delivering my hook so that you knew what the purpose of our writing activity was. Let's pretend that's how I set our lesson up. Now we've written this first draft. I would then go to the writing workshop then. And I would go ahead and we would talk about writing instruction to be based on the process that skilled writers use, the focus lesson, the status of the lesson, and then the actual writing process. So you have your, what did I do? I had you individually write, not in pairs or groups. You were individually. And then we would come to a writing process conference where we would have peer editing groups. And then it would go into a teacher conference, which would be one-on-one. So I might look at Kayla's essay and say, Kayla, you did a really good job with your introduction. I feel like your paragraphs need to be split up a little bit more, or something like that. And then you would go ahead and share that out. And that could be in a whole class setting, or you could actually share it by publishing it in a classroom book. You could publish it on a bulletin board. But our text is very, very strongly encouraging that the students have a way to display their writing. What was the purpose for that? It shouldn't just be an assignment. I really like this handout. I did put this PowerPoint on today's lesson, but this gives you a really good way to track your students, because I don't know if you've worked with students before in a writing experience. We all write at different paces. My daughter is a very fast writer, so she would probably fly through this whole assignment. My son, it's really hard for him to get organized. So he might be over here on the revising part. He might be stuck here for a while. And at that point, that's fine. But as the teacher, you need to come and check in with him. So he would maybe need to come all the way over here and go to the student-teacher conference and talk about, why are we stuck on the revising process? What can I do to help you? How can I help you with that process? But this little, I mean, basically they're showing little clips. And so it's kind of fun where you can move the kids around and see how you're organizing them and keep track of them, because that's a big part of the writing workshop problem is you always have those 3 students who hide from you. It's like, oh, I don't need your help. But this way, they have to have your help and you can track them. And then this is another good little chart that helps you tracking the status of the class. So you've got the name of the students, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then you can give yourself these codes. You don't have to use these codes, but this is a really nice tool so that you're remembering to check in with every student, even your student who doesn't ask you for help. You need to check in with them anyway. Then the last components then of the writers conference, these are just some topics. Make sure that you understand, what was the intent of your writing? Who was your audience? What's the purpose for writing this? It's not just to get an assignment done. What's the purpose? What's the need? Why do you need to explain your person that's important to you? And then teach the writer and talk about the plan. The process. The writing actually has a process. The writing process is a real process that students have to be explicitly taught, so that when you're teaching first grade, you're teaching the same process. The writing process is the same across the board. It's not new. Let's see if I've got that. Nope, it was on the worksheet, sorry. So your writing process has always got to be the pre-writing and the drafting and the editing and the sharing. They all have some sort of language around those components and those steps. Okay, 2 more people who want to share their very, very rough draft about their special person.
I'll share.
Okay.
Okay, the special person I've chosen is my mom. My mom inspires me to be the best person I can be. She has overcome a lot of obstacles in her life. She had suffered for 20 years with migraines. When I was 18, shortly after going to college, she was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor. From the time it was discovered until the time it was removed, the tumor grew 150%. The surgery had to take place 3 states away from home. When the doctors in California removed the tumor, it was the size of a softball. Sorry, this is emotional for me. My mother had to relearn to walk, talk, drive, cook, clean, and use her limbs. She was given up to 5 years to live after the surgery. My mother had her surgery in December of 2000. It is now April of 2020, and she is still strong-willed and inspiring me. My mother is my special person who inspires me to be better and live life better every day.
That was so sweet. Oh, see, you need to polish this and give it to her. This is great. Any
That's how
others?
it inspires me every weekend.
That's awesome. Okay, one more. Like, this is a really fun
Mine.
writing prompt. It really is. Do I have one more who wants to share?
I'll read mine.
Okay.
Someone who is special to me is my grandma. She passed away a few years ago, but she was a big influence in the way my life turned out. She always pushed me to be the best version of myself. My mom and dad were not fit to raise me when I was younger, so my grandma and grandpa raised me. I would hate to know how my life would have turned out had my grandma not intervened and taken me in as her own. She was always there for me no matter what, and she taught me everything there is to know about life. I will always remember our 3 a.m. Walmart runs just because there were less people in the store during this time. We used to go on vacation a lot too. We went to Colorado a few times, and one of those times we ended up running into a tornado on the way there. I remember telling her to turn around and go the other way, but she told me that you should never run from tornadoes. Instead, she went and hid under the overpass, which you also aren't supposed to do. This woman was the funniest person I know. She always loved to scare me. I used to be afraid of pumpkins, and she would be hiding somewhere when I was little, making woo noises to make me think it was the pumpkin. There was also one time I rolled over in bed and woke up with her next to me with a really creepy mask on. While I was sleeping, she had gotten in bed with me and laid facing me until I rolled over with this mask on. At nighttime, she would go outside and beat on the windows to make me think someone was outside trying to get in. Even today, she still influences what I do, because now that she is gone, I'm always trying to do things that I know she would be proud of. All she ever wanted for me was to be successful and happy. So as life goes on, this is what I'm trying to do. She always wanted me to find something that I love and go with it. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be who I am today.
She sounds hilarious.
Yeah, she was.
All right. So we could literally spend so much time on this activity, but I just, my challenge in ending this conversation with you all is to explicitly teach reading. Do not do what I just did and throw out a topic and just walk away from your students. Okay. So just take that away from this class as my non-example. And remember that the writing process really needs to have the pre-writing and the brainstorming, and then the writing, and then the editing and revising and drafting. And how many times do you go through the editing, revising process? Is there a set number? No. And that's what the Writers Conference is all about. You go through that process a few different times until you feel like your process has gotten the message across for the purpose of your paper, whatever that paper purpose is. So it always looks different. Every writing activity may have a different twist, and you may go through the revision process 2 or 3 times, or you may only go through it 1 time. But it's really important for students to understand that the revision process is necessary.
Joanne?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Sure.
So why, like, if doing what we just did, is not like the best way to go about like presenting a writing assignment or like a writing activity, why does the state require us to take like a writing test and not have like the time to sit down and actually like think about it in rough draft, and like then we test on that and have to turn it into the state? And like, if you have an IEP in writing, you have to do writing activities weekly or however often your IEP says, and you don't have the time to actually sit down and like think and write and rough draft and talk to the teacher. Like, why do we do that?
Okay, so go back to what I said earlier. What is the purpose? So
It was
the purpose, for instance, for the purpose of the IEP, it's an assessment. The purpose of the state assignment is an assessment. So you're not asking them to provide you a polished product. You're asking them for an assessment, a snapshot in their writing journey. Most of the time for our IEP kids, we're looking at mechanics. Every now and then I have kids that I move to a rubric, and then I'll look at all of it. And when my kids are on a rubric, I do write my goals so that they have the option to have it untimed, and they do have the option to go ahead and revise. So if I'm looking at the writing process as a whole for an IEP goal, those kids will be on a rubric. If I'm just looking for their mechanics, spelling, grammar, punctuation, those types of things, that would be the purpose of the writing. So it's to assess. Does that make sense? I know it's really confusing. The assumption for the assessment then is that you've already learned how the writing process works. So at this point, the assessment wants to see, what do your mechanics look like? What does your thought process look like?
Okay. No, that makes sense. And yeah, I guess the purpose is different. It's just frustrating.
It really is, especially for those of us who do need a lot more time in the revision process, and you're expected to have a set time, and then that's it. That is very frustrating.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, thank you. That answers my question.
Always ask yourself, what's the purpose of the writing?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so anyway, I will stop with the content of chapter 10. I literally could have talked about chapter 10 for days. There's so much information, so many different ways to teach the writing process. Just always remember, it's a process. All right, I am going to go through and review the next session's activities. Hold on just a second. I want to get rid of this PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. All right, back to Moodle. Where'd you go? I lost Moodle. It's missing. There it is. Okay. I'm going to share my screen one more time, just so that we can recap. Oh, I was going to let Dakota talk too. Dakota, did you want to talk before I go through the last assignments?
Not about this, but I was going to share a random thing. So when we were on break, they were on the Good Morning America doing this thing of you had to draw a card, and like the spade was jumping jacks and a heart was push-ups, something like that. And this family was doing it on there, and it was supposed to be the whole family activity, and there's this kid in the back going, that would be me. I would have been that kid. So that's what I was going to share earlier. Might kind of work out.
I could totally do that, yeah. Or just, I don't know, not work out right now. Okay, back to the task at hand. I will share my screen for Moodle and move everybody over here. All right. So our non-Zoom week, you have your prompt here. Just want to make sure I didn't screw anything up. Complete your discussion board number 4 with your replies. Oh my goodness, that's even wrong. Discussion forum 6, not 4. You've already done 4. I'll fix that. By midnight next Saturday. Remember, that's for your attendance. And then make sure you get your last journal done. We're not doing another one. This is the last one, and it will be due on our next session on the 18th. And then lesson plan 5 will be due on the 18th. When we come back together for class for our last content sharing for chapters 11 and 12, we'll walk through what our final class looks like. And I'll talk through about presentations and the possibility of some sort of a final. We'll see. A lot of times we just kind of not do those. Any questions then about what's due? So you have your lesson plan due by next session. The journal is due by the next session over the reading. Hopefully by now the lesson plans are getting really easy to do because they're very repetitive, very similar in structure. And then your discussion board. I'm going to stop sharing.
We have quizzes due tonight too, right?
Yep, and quizzes. I'm going to, as soon as we're done here, they are actually already live. So you should be able to click on them, and they're open until the end of tonight. So you can either walk away from class and come back to them at 10 o'clock, or you can just sit through and get them done real quick. If you do not have any other questions, we're going to end class right now and let you get on with your very cold day. What is it, like 30 degrees out? It's freezing. I think someone was talking, but let's see. Anyone want to have a question? I had somebody moving their lips and no sound was coming. Okay. If you don't have any other questions, you're welcome to sign off and close your camera.